The US Treasury is spiraling, and no one at the top seems to be hitting the brakes. Every single day, the situation gets worse, not better, not stable, worse. And here's the brutal truth. This is issue, not some abstract economic headline. No, this is what decides whether the system holds or breaks. We all know the drill by now. The US government is addicted to issuing debt, bonds on bonds on bonds, just to keep the lights on. But the game only works. So the question is, what happens when they stop? Because that's exactly what's starting to happen. You'd think in a crisis this deep, the Treasury Department would show leadership. But no, what we're getting is spin, deflection, and foggy excuses. And it's not just the Biden administration. This problem didn't appear out of thin air. It's been building for years, but Biden didn't slow it down. He floored the gas. They inherited a 6.7% deficit to GDP outside of a war or recession. Historic. And what did they do with it? They doubled down. Massive spending, bond issuance on steroids, and promises they can't keep. Now, Besson says they're trying to grow the economy and bring down the deficit. Okay, but here's the reality. Bond yields are exploding because the world doesn't believe them. The trust is gone. In just the first 6 months of the fiscal year, the United States borrowed $1.3 trillion it didn't have. April brought a tax-driven surplus, sure, but that's always temporary. The rest of the year, a deficit blowout waiting to happen. Meanwhile, Trump's new tax bill just sailed through the House and it's about to launch spending into orbit. Combine that with his escalating trade war and you've got the perfect storm. Tariffs go up, spending goes up, confidence way down. Yields on the 10-year just blasted past 4.6%, the 30-year over 5.1%. And the 2-year is at 4%, climbing fast. That yield curve is screaming one thing. Long-term trust in the United States is unraveling. Economic warnings and consequences are becoming more pronounced. The US Treasury's situation is raising alarms across financial markets. The ripple effects are starting to show, and the potential consequences could be severe. Even Ray Dalio is sounding the alarm. He's saying the quiet part out loud. Trust in US debt is collapsing, foreign buyers are walking away, and domestic demand, it's cratering. The last 20-year Treasury auction, it bombed. Worst in years, only 14% of domestic buyers even showed up. That's down from a 17% average. That's historic. Why? Because they know what's coming. Inflation isn't dead, it's lurking, waiting. And even 5% yields can't tempt buyers if they believe inflation will eat it alive. And then there's Trump's solution, tax cuts for everyone. Great, but those same people are about to get hammered by higher prices thanks to tariffs. It's like giving someone a glass of water while setting their house on fire. Now you might say just print more money like 2008 or 2020, but that era is over. Back then, global demand for dollars was strong, but now Trump wants to end globalization. That means more dollars circulating inside the US, and that means even higher inflation. And here's the killer stat. By 2035, the CBO expects that out-of-control borrowing will cut US private investment by 13.6%. And by 2045, nearly 18% of long-term growth gone. Just deleted. Why? Because government bonds compete with corporate bonds for capital, and there's only so much money to go around. Meanwhile, countries like China, lower borrowing costs, stronger growth, better investment climate, the US, drowning in debt and tariffs. Even JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon is panicking. He sees the collision course geopolitical chaos, runaway deficits, sticky inflation, and he's right, the Fed is stuck. They can't cut rates without igniting another inflation surge. But if they don't cut, borrowing costs keep rising, the economy slows, risk assets tumble. We're staring down the barrel of stagflation, sluggish growth, high inflation, rising unemployment, and no one's steering the ship. Stocks won't collapse to zero, but they'll whiplash up and down for months or years, just like we've seen before. And here's the kicker. Trump says this trade war is a national emergency. Really? Since when did a trade deficit become a battlefield? And now the messaging out of the White House is just bizarre. They're telling us tariffs are already on everything, prices are up across the board, but nobody feels any pain. Really? If that's true, then why is the dollar collapsing? Why are imports more expensive? Why is the middle class suffocating? Because they're gaslighting us. And while they play PR games, the deficit is climbing by $500 billion every year. That's $500 billion in new Treasury issuance annually. That's inflationary, that's disastrous, that's unsustainable. There's only one real way out of this mess, and it's ugly. Either the Fed forces yields lower by cutting rates and crushing demand, or we get hit by a recession that does it for them. There's no painless path here. And we haven't even touched the interest bill. In the first 7 months of the year, the US spent $580 billion just to service the debt. That's more than most countries spend on their entire government. So what can they cut? Social Security? Not a chance. Not with prices at Walmart soaring. Defense? Forget it. We're locked into a global arms race with China. There's only one area left to slash interest payments. And the only way to do that is to force yields down, which means coercing the Fed or unleashing the printing press. Neither of those ends well. So, as we've explored, the state of the US Treasury is indeed a complex and critical issue. It's clear that informed decisions and proactive measures are essential. We urge you to stay informed, engage in discussions, and advocate for responsible fiscal policies. Your voice matters, and together we can make a difference. Thank you for watching, and remember, the future of our economy depends on the actions we take today. The 30-year just hit 5.15%, highest since 2007. We are back at crisis levels. And the question is simple. Can Trump or Besson or anyone in DC really afford to just sit back? Because the higher this goes, the faster we march toward a full-blown collapse. So what's the end game? Will they wave the white flag on this trade war? Will the bond market keep crumbling? Or is there some miracle no one sees coming? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash the like button, subscribe for more, and buckle up because this ride isn't over. Not even